Welcome to Across the Park podcast, the only place you can hear banter and debate weekly from both sides of Stanley Park, whether it be blue or red. Sponsored by Their Clothing and Camper Kings Northwest.
Well, everyone, welcome to Across the Park podcast, episode 14 of the 21-22 season. Myself, Gary Judge, and Andrew Price representing the Blues tonight, and we've got Phil and I was pointing that way then. It's confusing that when you're looking at it. We've got Phil Roberts and Terry McGibbon representing the Reds. Hello to any of our new YouTube viewers. Great to have you on board. And please, before I forget, subscribe if you haven't already. So just by Phil's head there, you'll see that little subscribe reminder for you. But down below this clip, you should see a little button that'll say subscribe. It does really help us that. I know Millsy pushed it last week. It helps us if we can get to 1,000. It gives us loads more options in terms of content. So please subscribe if you haven't already. Massive thank you to our sponsors, Camper Kings UK. Check them out on Instagram. They've got a massive selection of camper vans, loads of choices for you if you're looking to get away on a staycation. And thank you to our clothing partners, Their Clothing. The Blues are matched up in our lovely t-shirts. The Reds are just lazy and haven't put them on. They have got some really good Black Friday offers coming up all week. Actually, I think it's Monday to Friday. They've got a different offer on every day. I think the end of the week, they've got like 50% sale. So check them out as well. That's theirclothing.com. Okay, so we're going to get into it. We're going to start this week with some social media questions. After the social media questions, we'll be previewing both teams' games. We've got no games, obviously, to review because we've had an international break. So we're going to start with social media. And obviously, there's been a fairly significant, or there's been a couple of Premier League appointments over the international break. One more significant to both sides of the park than the other, and that was Steven Gerrard moving from Rangers to Aston Villa. Phil, we got a question from one of our listeners. You want to start with that?
Yeah, Stephen wrote in, you can't actually say Gerrard's name. He's put G and loads of dashes with a D at the end. He said, with that fella going to Villa, I can't say his name. He made my school life a misery. Will Villa now take over us? I feel they're building a good squad of players. Meanwhile, we're signing free transfers and bargain basement players. They now have someone who seems to be a progressive manager and who you can see attracting players. We've got Benitez, whose day was about 15 years ago and feels a bit stale. I just feel that we're sleepwalking backwards. Are the lads concerned?
Ricey?
No, I'm not concerned. I mean, no more concerned than I was come the summer when Villa made a few good signings, and we obviously only signed the players that we did. In terms of a man, I mean, in terms of Villa, they had a decent season last season, especially towards the second half of the season. If you remember, they'd done well. They've started this season slow, and getting rid of Grealish, not only what he does on the pitch, but what he does around the club as well, has been massive for them. It was the similar story when Tottenham lost Bale and they tried to replace him with 4 or 5 other players. I think Villa have done similar, and they've signed good players. I think that the players they've brought in have been of quality, and certainly, you know, when you look at it on paper, better quality than what we brought in the summer as well. Although obviously Townsend and Gray have proven to be really good signings so far. So I'm not more worried than I would have been previously in terms of managers and Gerrard being a progressive manager. Is he? I don't know. I genuinely don't know if he is or not. And that's he's a decent player, and he's had some success at Rangers. Could he have won more at Rangers with the money that he spent at Rangers in comparison to what the previous managers did? I don't know. I think it'd be a massive test for him coming to Villa. I think it's a good choice for him coming to Villa. He's at a stable club. He's at a big, relatively big club. And it's a good stepping stone for him to move on to future things, probably. But has he been that successful at Rangers? I don't know if he is, and genuinely don't know if he has. The amount of money they've spent and he's had on players, and I think the wage bill particularly has gone massively up at Rangers since he's been there, and only to have one trophy. When you look at, I think it's St Johnstone or another team who's won 2 cups in that time. Could he have won more? And should he have won more? I don't know. I don't know what you think on that, Judgy. But in terms of him over Benitez, when we signed Benitez in the summer, who was out there for us? I mean, who was the progressive manager? We could have got Eddie Howe or Lampard. I would have took Benitez over them any day of the week, and obviously certainly wouldn't have tried to get Gerrard in. So could we have got a more progressive manager at the time? No, we couldn't, because we were trying for ages to think of one, and we couldn't think of a better one than Benitez. So I'm happy with Benitez. Yeah, Villa will be probably close or there or thereabouts with us, providing that Gerrard has some success. But to say that he's this progressive, decent manager who's come in and is going to change them, I'm not having it.
Yeah, really, really fair point, to be honest, and probably a lot more in-depth than I was expecting. Not that I wasn't expecting you to be in-depth about Gerrard, but yeah, I don't disagree with any points you've just made. I think, I'll be honest, and the Reds know this because someone leaked the Everton group to them a while ago, our WhatsApp group. I was concerned about Villa at the start of the season. I thought the signings they made were good ones. I thought they spent the money well. I still haven't changed my opinion on that, but you've had like the likes of Leon Bailly, who struggled with injuries, hasn't really settled in as well as he could have done. The defence has been a bit more leaky than it was last season, which has probably caused them more problems than the forward players have. Ollie Watkins hasn't quite hit the ground running like he did last season. So there was a bit of doubt that crept in there, and meanwhile we've done okay. We had a half decent start. I think it's an interesting appointment. I think Pricey's obviously highlighted really well there that maybe the hype around Gerrard is a little bit unwarranted, considering he went up there. He did inherit a decent squad at Rangers. He got backed heavily, but he's done well. They've overturned Celtic. That's always the battle, isn't it? Celtic and Rangers. Celtic were going for 10 in a row. That was that couldn't happen for Rangers. He stopped that from happening. So he turned the tide. And I think that's why he's kind of developed, a bit of a reputation. Done okay in Europe as well. I think against some decent sides. So I think I think he's done a good job up there. I don't think many people could say it was a bad job, but taking on board what you've just said as well, it's a massive jump for me. League wise and competition wise, if you think of 12 teams in the SPL, out of those 12 teams, only 2 or 3 of them can compete on any level with you, and that's only with the re-emergence of like Hearts recently. Before that, Aberdeen were maybe in the mix, maybe Hibs every now and again, but it's only really a 2 or 3 team league at best.
Yeah, but when Gerrard took over, it wasn't a 2-team; it was a 1-team thing, wasn't it? So it is a 2-horse race now. But I seem to remember Rangers not being in the mix.
No, Rangers got relegated, didn't they?
Right down the pecking order, didn't he?
Got dropped down to like the 3rd division, but they've been in the SPL for a good few years when Gerrard took over, and they were still within 6 points or whatever. The Celtic, they weren't like 20 points away like the other teams were. There's no doubt that he shifted he turned the tide, like I said, and they are the best team really on paper by some distance now in Celtic. In Scotland. So yeah, he's left them in a good position, but it is a big jump into the Premier League. I wouldn't say. I think there was an argument on TalkSport last week saying who's the bigger club, Villa or Rangers. Following wise, from a support perspective, there's not much in it because Rangers have got a huge following. There's loads of pressure up there because you are literally expected to deliver within a season or two. They've got similar European pedigree, looking back to the 70s and whatever. Villa have won a European Cup. So, similar size clubs in terms of what they've achieved. But it's the league more than anything else. That's the big step up. And he's got the job of taking Villa probably further than what he's had to take Rangers. Rangers only had to move up 1 position and overthrow 1 team. Villa are going to have to do that to probably 3 or 4 teams. You've got Arsenal now who are looking like they've turned the corner. We've got Tottenham who've got a top manager again. Benitez will be expecting more of his team, and you've got the top 4 or 5 clubs as well. So it's a much bigger job.
Terry, what do you like in order for Gerrard to end up as Liverpool manager? He's going to have to be determined to be successful at Villa, and that's the tricky thing for me. What do you think success will look like?
Well, it's a good question. I mean, just before, like I sort of mentioned that, I think one thing that we do have to. I mean, I take your point. You're saying that it's a much tougher job, the Villa job, than the Rangers job in terms of the quality of league that he's playing in. But he went. It was a pressure position that he took over there at Rangers. They were off the pace. Under Rodgers, Celtic looked a proper force, and they were going for 10 in a row, and he basically denied them that. won the league at Rangers and won it with an unbeaten season. So,
and he would have won it this season as well.
Yeah, he probably would. You know what I mean?
That was the fact, though, weren't it? Rodgers leaving made the job a lot easier because he built something and kind of someone else couldn't really take over that. So it was made a lot easier by Rodgers walking away and going to Leicester.
There's no dispute. He's done a good job. But my point is it that good a job to say that we're gutted that Villa have got him and now Villa are going to overtake him, which is what the question was, and Villa are going to progress because they've got Gerrard. I don't see that.
And I think Phil's point, so he's asking there, what does success look like at Villa? I think if anyone thinks that Gerrard's going to go in and all of a sudden catapult Villa into like Champions League places, then you know what I mean. I think that's too big an ask for him. But I think it is a very, very good next logical step for him. He's probably done as much as he can really do at Rangers, even if he wins another league or whatever. He's not really enhancing, his reputation much further. So he needs to kick on and step on. And a Premier League challenge at a club with new owners, wealthy owners who will back him. As Judgy said, they've got a squad there that, in Judgy's eyes, as he said, at the start of the season, was better than Everton. So you'd think, he's got the tools if he can come in and get a grip of that squad and get them firing. I think, if he can get Villa into European places in the next 2 seasons, I think that represents, pretty good progress because they've obviously, they're in the Premier League, they're established again in the Premier League. They've got a good base to build from, and then they can now look to try and get in them European places. And I think if he's competing, with them, the teams that you think who would expect to be around there, Spurs, Arsenal, Leicester, West Ham, maybe now that they've found a little bit of stability and stuff. Then if he's competing well with them and taking points off big teams and stuff, then he's done probably as good a job as he can be asked to do at Villa.
The problem is, though, if you don't overtake West Ham, Everton, Leicester, Tottenham, etc., you end up 10th. That's not going to be easy to do. And what does 10th do for Gerrard's career?
Going back to the listener's question, obviously only time will tell in terms of where they end up finishing this season, next season, or whatever. But I do think that it's I guess the question in my head is, do I think Gerrard will get Villa into Europe before Benitez gets us into Europe? I don't think so. I think it's going to take him longer to adjust to that job and to get to where he wants to be or Villa want him to be than it will be for Benitez to turn us around in terms of us being a top 4 challenging team. But I do think that his experience of being in, I think, a very similar position when he took over at Hughes, where Hughes were languishing a little bit, slightly higher than us, but not much higher. I think he knows what he needs to do to get us into Europe more than Gerrard will know what he needs to do at Villa. I think he's got a bit more work to do there.
Yeah, there's a difference in financial status, isn't there? In terms of your hands, and Benitez's hands are tied a little bit in the transfer window. I think Gerrard will be backed in the transfer window.
Only for the next window or so, though. After that,
I think they probably have sort of got a reasonably good squad base there. Obviously Grealish is gone, and that's hurt them a little bit. But they have bought some players who I think maybe they should be getting a better tune out of. I think he will be given some funds to sort of
Do you think he's got the name to attract good players?
I think he has.
I do as well.
Yeah, he's got the respect for players to come. Players will want to come and play for him, won't they? Because of his reputation as a player, if nothing else. Which is, you'd expect that, wouldn't you?
You know what's weird? I will now, as a second team, support Villa. Only because I want Gerrard to do well so he becomes Liverpool manager. It sounds a bit like, I know you can say, oh, you've only got one team. But if you want Gerrard to be Liverpool manager, then you want Villa to do well, don't you? So it's weird feeling.
Yeah, as long as they don't take points off us and they take points off everyone else. Win-win, innit?
I can't remember who made the point, and I can't remember where they heard it, but it may have been on a phone or something. I think someone made the point about Ferguson saying, like, if he really wanted to be manager and he really wanted to take that step, he needs to leave or he should have left. And, you've got to have a bit of, to a certain extent, respect for that, because Gerrard could have stayed in the academy and maybe just waited his turn, become first team coach and all that. But, he's took the more difficult step and obviously the more progressive step of going out, standing on his own 2 feet and putting himself in the firing line. And it is a faster track to becoming a manager at a big club if you're going to go and do it elsewhere than it is to just kind of sit in the background, isn't it? Certainly from a preparation point of view.
Yeah, and he's definitely made good choices. As you say, going to Rangers, a massive club, but it was just out of them in Celtic. So as long as he stopped Celtic, he'd sort of job done. And I'm not saying that weren't tough. It was tough, but it was a good opportunity for him to go to a big club in a small league and sort of understand the craft more with that pressure. And I think coming to Villa is a really good choice as well. As Terry said, they got what looks like good owners on the face of it. A good club, a good stadium. They got the fans. It's a big city, the second city, nice fan base there. So it's all in place for him. Plus, but the expectations aren't massive. Do you know what I mean? He's got everything he needs, but they're not expected to get into the Champions League. If he can win the Carabao Cup and finish 7th, that's a boss season, isn't it? Or if he can finish top 6, that's a boss season. So it's a really good choice for him to progress. And obviously, he wants that Liverpool job eventually. You'd think so. As Phil says, if he can get a top 6 plus he's challenging against those teams like your Tottenhams and your Arsenals, then he's done his job, hasn't he? He doesn't need to really do anything more than that. Which I'm not saying that's not hard, it is, but for his point of view, it's a really good choice for him.
I think one more thing is that Aston Villa, to my eyes, don't play with a particular identity that you could recognise if it was silhouettes. Like some teams do, like you were saying then, Judgy. Difficult to take over a Rodgers team, isn't it? Because it's so set in its way of playing. I don't think Villa have got that, so I think it's an opportunity for Gerrard to impose whatever his style is.
That's why I thought the Newcastle job was a bit of a not only the fact they got the money and all the expectation, the Newcastle fans like a certain way of playing, don't they? And they're not going to maybe accept, initially when you come into a club that are struggling where Newcastle are, it's about being hard to beat and this, that, and the other. They want the old Kevin Keegan,
attacking,
throwing the kitchen sink, getting stoppers in the, you know what I mean? And it's like that takes a while to get there. So yeah, I think that's a really good point. To be fair, I think it could be another shrewd move. I hope it isn't. I hope he fails spectacularly. But
we'll see. I mean, just the last point for Gerrard. I mean, he's always had that little sort of pull of home, hasn't he? Even when he went to America and that, he sort of wanted to get back, and it didn't really quite probably work out as he wanted to get out of Liverpool originally because it was a bit of a fishbowl. Well, now that he's had that break, he wanted to get back, and now, he'll be basically living back at home now. He's only an hour away in terms of rather than living in Scotland. So I think for him, it's a perfect move. It's a perfect platform and opportunity for him, football wise, and obviously getting back closer to his family and stuff. Far more settled family life, which I think as a manager is probably key, isn't it? It's a pressure position, you know what I mean? And you're living and breathing like football. It's not like necessarily the players who go training and then they're done until match day. The manager's constantly. So having your family around you and thing and getting a bit more of a settled sort of family life is, I imagine it's very important. So I think it is. It's as Judgy said, it's right that he bided his time and not jumped at the Newcastle job, the first sort of opportunity that came. And then, this one's came through, and I can definitely see why he took it, in terms of testing his mettle in the Prem.
Jokes aside, I know one of his first team coaches very well, and I just want to make it clear, I don't want him to fail spectacularly because he might lose his job then. But no, it is a good point that, because he was saying to me that it's massive for them to be able to see the friends again and whatever, being up in Glasgow, it wasn't the case. So yeah, I think that was definitely a big factor. Phil?
Yeah.
You got any more?
Yeah, but just nice to have 2 secret agents in the Prem now, isn't it, Terry?
Yeah, absolutely. We took over the media, now we're taking over all the managerial spots.
Right, okay. Another question that we can both answer. This one's from Liam. I'm not sure whether he's a red or a blue, but he's asked, who is the best midfielder in our team? So I'll ask it to both sides, and I'll start with the Blues.
Easy one, isn't it, probably at the moment.
Well, is it?
We just saw all-round midfielder.
Interpret it any way you want, I suppose.
Yeah, I'm going to Corey, to be honest.
Yeah. I thought you were going to say Alan, you see, because I know you're a fan of Alan.
Yeah,
I'll go to Corey.
No, I do love Alan, but as a box-to-box all-round midfielder in terms of overall influence on the team, it's the Corey, yeah. He's got the athleticism. We've obviously seen now he's had a bit more license. He's got the goals in him. Covers every blade of grass. He's good in the air. He's everything you'd really want from him.
Yeah.
Isn't he?
And if needs, I think he could fill in that defensive role as well and not push on if you don't want him to. You want him to hold back.
He did more, didn't he, under Ancelotti? He was a lot more like kind of an old school, Vieira, Makelele type player, but he's obviously, he wasn't more renowned for that at Watford, and he's shown this season before he got injured that he can chip in with the goals.
But I think that's one position we really lack as a centre midfielder for Everton. I think even, the last game when Holgate came on just summed it up really. Holgate and Davis are your midfielders. You bring it on when you need to. You've obviously got Gabamon, who's, he could be good, he could not. But I'm not going to put him in a role where I'm saying he can come in. You got Gomez, you got Davis, just all subpar players that once we've got a couple of injuries, I think we'll really struggle. And hopefully, I think Decore possibly could be back this week. I know we'll speak about it in a bit in the previews, but I think having him back is going to be massive, especially after the last few performances when he's been missing.
100%.
Terry, the stats tell the entire story for Liverpool, don't they? It's Naby Keita.
I mean, at the moment, right now, it's hard to even say who is. You'd say Henderson. You know what I mean? I think because you're looking around Fabinho. I don't think he hasn't been in great form so far this season. Keita obviously, has done better this season, but as I've always said, he's got a long walk of redemption before he gets back. For me to say he's Liverpool's best midfielder. Oxlade-Chamberlain's indifferent. At the moment, I'm looking at our midfield and just sort of like, I don't know. There's not a lot of identity to it at the moment. It's hard to say who it is, who's like the main three, and who is really sort of owning that midfield and making themselves undroppable. Even Henderson has had games this season where it's been a bit like, he hasn't looked great, like against City and stuff. So there's no one at the moment who's really setting the world on fire in our midfield, which is quite disappointing. I know it's always been a bit more of a workman-like midfield under Klopp as opposed to real sort of flair players, but even at the moment it just doesn't seem to be. We talked about it last week on the podcast, didn't we? It doesn't seem to be vibing.
No, it's because we haven't got the workhorses available, Terry. That's why we're going back to. And for me, this is like everyone's been going on about Liverpool need an attacking midfielder, and for years I've been saying no, we don't, and now we're seeing why. It's like we've got the attacking midfielders and we're forced to play them because we haven't got the workhorses available, and look what's going wrong. It's like,
I think, but that's a bit too dingo though, isn't it? Because I think what was always the thing is against teams that sit back where you don't need three workmen, you need two and maybe an attacking midfielder. We didn't have one good enough to do it, and that was like, so we've had too much the other way and not enough the attacking, and now this season we've got too many of the attacking side and not enough of the others. So it's I think
in terms of what you're talking on form there, it's a difficult one to answer though, isn't it? If you take form out of it, because you're talking about Thiago, probably one of the best players
technically
in football when we signed him. When come on, Judge, he's blowing that face. He ran that European Cup final. One of the best midfielders out there.
You don't play for Bayern Munich when they're like sort of in their pomp. You don't play for Barcelona when they had one of their best sides. If you crap.
Yeah, have you played for Barcelona? We've been through this before.
I can't remember being in that Barcelona team. Like I wouldn't put him in the Barcelona team.
Special.
At the 20 games at the most in one season was the most he played. I think.
Yeah, he was a kid.
So don't be at it. Look, he was good for Bayern, but he fit. He was just perfect for that team, wasn't he? I think we've established now from what you've seen it use that he fits very well into that team. He's done very little for Spain. He's never really been able to hold down a place in the team for Spain. He's done nothing at Barcelona, and he's been soggy for years.
Yeah, it's been soggy for us. Like whatever for whatever the reason, injuries, system. Like you can't say he's been good for us, Phil. Really, has he at the moment?
No, but when he's played with Gerrard, when he's played with Henderson and Fabinho, he's looked the business. To be fair,
so is that what he was brought in for then, to play in a three with them too?
He's only played them two or three times since he signed.
Yeah, but he looked good towards the back end of last season when they started getting together again. Early on when we first signed him. Against Everton, for one.
Against Everton, against Chelsea, them couple of games, you look good. But listen, we haven't seen anywhere near what we were expecting. Let's not make any bones about that. But at the same time, I'm not having that. The whole revision of he was crap before Liverpool signed him.
But when you say it's the system, Terry, where was he expected to play? Your system hasn't changed, does it?
Well, I think he was signed almost because everyone was, when we signed him, it was a surprise. I think, people made the point it didn't look like a natural Klopp type of player, but Klopp was, effusive about him, really, in his praise and sort of saying he's a brilliant player and I wanted him and stuff. I think he was signed almost to give us that little bit of control in games where, the likes of like the big games, like a City or whatever, where you want to you might not get a lot of opportunities. If you do get the opportunities, you need to be able to shut a game down and close it out and basically keep the ball and, control the midfield and just move players around and stuff like that. I think he was signed to be that type of player in them types of games or Champions League games where it's like, you just want that little bit of extra quality, in terms of just maybe dictating and just stroking the ball around and moving like players around and stuff. We didn't quite have that. As Phil said, we had a lot of like the sort of Fabinho, Wijnaldum and Henderson who do get through tons of work, but weren't necessarily the sort of, string puller midfielders that you get, like what City have got.
Andre Gomez for us, Spicey. Andre Gomez for us, and to a certain extent, like all technical skills.
I think he was signed. Yeah, he was signed to do that role, and then
I think in the derby and against Chelsea that you mentioned before, when he first signed, I think they are the 2 games that he has done that, but I can't remember him doing it apart from those.
No. Injuries, which we knew was a problem with him when we signed him. You know what I mean? But he has had bad injuries and stuff. He's missed a lot of football.
It's how you define best, though, isn't it? He's probably got the best touch. He's the best at dribbling. He's the best at passing. If you want to break down attributes, it's him all day.
If it's Champions League final, who you're putting in the midfield, that's probably the answer, isn't it?
Well, if you're talking about who's going to influence, who can you rely on, who's going to be a bigger influence and stuff, and all that side of it, you can't look past Henderson for me. But
probably not. I would have said Fabinho, like until this like recent run of form, because there's been times where I've just been like watching him and just going, he's just ridiculous. Like where you think, how did we sign him and no one, he wasn't even on anyone's radar because he'd been that good for us. And you're looking at it thinking he's just easily the best defensive mid in the world. But then at the moment, he's nowhere near that sort of standard. But he has been. And there's times where I just think, if he's in his top form, he's the first name on the sheet. He's up there with Van Dijk for me in terms of going on that first name on the team sheet. But so far this season, for whatever reason, he's just not quite there.
Ran out of Klopp juice.
Yeah, maybe.
Anyway,
okay, next question.
We've got some reviews to get.
A nice little message from Lisa. He said, "Hi to all the lads at the show. I've watched all the shows on your channel and their boss. Keep them coming." So thanks very much for that, Reese. Appreciate the message. Okay, this is from Loz. Hey lads, loving the content. Even the red lads are decent as well as far as Reds go. We'll take that tip, won't we, T?
Yeah. And a compliment.
Wasn't talking about you, Phil. He's talking about Gary and Terry.
Must be. Just a question for the Blues. Is Brands Steve Walsh with a stylist?
Like, I mean, you can't argue with any criticism of Brands, can you? Do you know what I mean? I'm not about to, by the way, but he hasn't covered himself in glory by both, I suppose the managerial appointments and the recruitment of players. We were led to believe that he was going to bring in younger players, and balance out the squad in that way. I guess he was up against it still, and he's still trying to get rid of some of the dead wood. But I haven't seen any of those those signings that he's, we were meant to be plucking from South America and all this young talent he was going to be unearthing. Every player we seem to be linked to seems to be a well-known player. We haven't took one player from as far as I know, from South America or from like any of the more obscure leagues that, we might get a bit of value from. So, yeah, I don't think he's pulled up trees at all. Walsh was obviously will be forever remembered for that 2017 transfer window that we won, where he spent all of Mashiri's money. So I wouldn't quite put him on Steve Walsh's level because I don't think he's been as reckless as Steve Walsh was. I don't think there's any question about that. But there've been a lot of questionable signings in there, albeit they've been countered by some good signings as well. We have got our squad is now worth more than it was when Brands come in. I think there's no doubt about that. We've got players that are better assets. Dominic Calvert-Lewin though was signed by Steve Walsh, which is an interesting one. You've got Charlisons and Luca Deans and even Yerry Mina. He has a tough introduction, but he's now our best centre back. I don't think there's any question for me. Even the sign, Pickford, Godfrey, they're all players that are assets that we didn't have. You know, the Doucouré and Allen signings were the Ancelotti signings. Maybe I don't think Doucouré was, and Doucouré obviously wasn't a talent that he's unearthed, but it was still a good signing. But yeah, you know, I can't defend Brands, and I think he's got to take as much ownership for the state the squad's in general as anyone does. But you know, I think calling Steve Walsh is probably a bit too far.
Yeah, I mean,
I can't help but notice the only metric by which fans measure, and it's probably because they don't know of anything else, but it's only purely signings, isn't it? Whereas I think he's got influence all over the club.
That's what I was going to say. We don't know how much influence he's being allowed to have, though. And that's the issue where you can't really properly give him a critique on how he's done, because we don't know how much influence he's got. You've obviously got Mashiri and Kenwright having their little 2 pence worth, so he hasn't got that. He doesn't seem anyway to being allowed to have that freedom to do what he wants to do. So unless he gets that, then it's difficult to judge him, in my opinion. And caveat that as well with the fact that, you know, he's took over the Steve Walsh stuff, which was a complete mess. So he was starting at a minus before he even got in. So I think it's difficult to judge him, but he certainly hasn't. As Judgy said there, I agree. He hasn't done everything that we expected him to do, but whether that's because he can't or whether that's because he hasn't been allowed to, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's the important piece.
We haven't touched on the academy side of it, but like we've said in previous shows, it'd be a show on its own, that, because there's a lot of factors I think that have made our youth setup where what it is today. But yeah, no, it's I completely see where. What was his name? Sorry,
I've gone past the message now. I've deleted it.
I completely see where the listener or viewer is coming from, and yeah, I can't disagree wholly, but I think it's still a little bit harsh to be comparing them to Steve Walsh.
Yeah, can I just ask the Blues? This is probably a wider question, but do you look at the fact that you don't know what he is responsible for and how much responsibility he's got? Is that a flaw in your setup? And because I look at the managerial appointments and I feel like a lot of them are Mashiri's, and rather than Brands. And then you look at, we heard about when you were in the market with the latest manager, when Ancelotti, Kenwright, Mashiri and Brands all had different men in mind. Do you look at that and think it's a failing, like in the model? And how'd you write it? What should Kenwright be getting asked to step aside now, and like clean house a little bit?
We can cover that. We've actually got in our next show later in the week, we've got a related This Week in History, so we can kind of touch on that then. But yeah, it's not helpful, is it? We all work for different businesses, different models or whatever, but it's never helpful when you've got three people who are responsible or have got a real, say in the same decision, is it? It only murkies the waters. It's helpful to get advice and whatever, but when you've clearly got three people with different levels of authority, all expected or having an input on the same decision, it's not conducive to a good one, is it? Or a consistent approach.
No, I think there's a fourth party as well. Usmanov is involved commercially, and I think they're worried to give from what I read and see. I think they're probably worried to give Brands that full reign because of the money that they're putting in and because of the commerciality of it. I don't think they trust them, and that's the flaw. If you're bringing someone in that role, you've got to trust them to do the job, and I don't think we're doing that.
That is, but at the moment he's just like a shield, isn't he? Mashiri makes all the decisions and Brands takes all the flack.
I think it stopped. I think you're right, Pricey, and I think it stopped becoming his decision when the Marco Silva one went wrong. Mm-hmm. And when Marco Silva went down the pan and someone had to step in and bring Allardyce in, that's when it was gone for me. Yeah, that's when all of the power went and all of the kind of
undermine them, don't you?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, it's like this podcast, isn't it? There's six of us, but I'm the one at the top giving clear direction to the others, and it just works.
Anyone who followed us for a while can take that for what it is.
Anyone who has to say that knows that they're not.
Right, that's the end of the social media section then.
Okay, so we're going to move on to our previews then. For our new viewers, we normally do reviews of the last game and obviously previews of the next games. We've got no games to review this week, so that's why we spent a little bit longer on the social medias. We're not going to spend too long on the previews. That's a heads up for the Reds, so not spend 10 minutes talking about the Arsenal shape. But yous are first up on Saturday, so we'll start with you. So it's Saturday night at Anfield, 5:30, under a rejuvenated Mikel Arteta's Arsenal.
Yeah, it's an interesting one, I think, this, because I think for so long we've looked at Arsenal and thought they're they're proper cabbage now. Absolutely. Nowhere near the sort of like standing that they used to have. And generally for us, they've been, it's been one of them games where we think we can take all 3 points out of these here. So, but it seems this season that they have found a little bit of a way of playing. They started to rack up some good results. They're right, I think they're fifth now, aren't they, in the league? They're only a couple 2 points behind us or something, or 2 or 3 points behind us. And as I say, they're getting wins and starting to string a good run of form together. So it is one of them games now where we came out of that Man U game on cloud 9, thinking everything's falling into place for us, and it feels like we were really starting to find our verve. And then obviously we've pulled up a draw there against Brighton, and then obviously gone and got beat by West Ham, and all of a sudden you're looking at it thinking, we need a win here, we need to sort of arrest that, because to only take basically 4 points out of them 9. If you play in Arsenal now, who basically potentially I think could leapfrog us, or if they can't overtake us with the win, they could certainly go level. And it's them sort of teams that are like snapping on our heels now. So we need to basically get a grip of this game and take all 3 points. I don't think it can be understated. There is coming back from an international break, you want to restart the season, with a win, and 5:30 on a Saturday night at home against Arsenal. It's a big game, isn't it, Phil?
Yeah, and Liverpool are not showing title-winning form this season, because all the games that we've either drew or lost, we've been ahead in all of them. Yeah. And then we've lost that lead. You don't win leagues like that. So, and we've quickly got to start to put that right. It's worrying for Saturday because Mane's got injured there. Standard internationals, Liverpool getting injury. So, looks like Mane's probably going to miss the game. Henderson's not playing against San Marino tonight. He's had a scan, which has revealed a small injury. It's only meant to be small, but, he's not playing tonight. Can he make it for Saturday? Without them two, I'd be very, very worried.
Yeah, well, you think Firmino's out. He done his hamstring, didn't he? So he's out anyway. So, without Mane, you're starting to look like it's probably going to have to be a Jota, Salah, and probably a Rigi up top. So it's a bit of a patched up front line. And then, as you say, the midfield, we know we've got problems in midfield anyway with injuries. So I think it is one of them. It's a challenge in terms of the injuries we've got and the players that are missing. But at the same time, as you've said, Phil, we're not in good form, as you say. We're going ahead in games, and we're having to maybe score 3 goals to win a game at the moment because we look liable to concede 1 or 2. So, definitely something that we need to work on. And I can't really say. I know it sounds dramatic, but I think it is a really important game. This one against these, because
Fabinho needs to find that world-class form again, doesn't he? He needs to turn it on quick.
Yeah, absolutely. And not even just Fabinho, though. Joe, someone who I've been a little bit sort of worried about a little bit this season, Andy Robertson, I don't think is in great form. I'm watching him in games and he's starting to look frustrated, like where things aren't coming off for him. His crossing has not been at the level, that we've seen of him previously.
I think he looks confidence affected to me.
Yeah, well, that's it. And it's one of them. I don't know whether it's, just a little bit of pressure. There's a little bit of competition for his place now. Starting to see a bit of competition, and maybe that's starting to tell on him a little bit. That he, whether there's any nerves there or a little bit of sort of concern that he might lose his place. But I think there's a large possibility that he might. He's been brilliant for us, and he's still one of the best left backs probably in Europe. But at the moment, he's not in a good run of form. When we've got all of our centre backs back, and obviously we've got Alisson and Trent, but now there's Robertson on that side. It's just not, for me, looking like the player that he has over the last couple of seasons. So there's a very real chance, I think, that you might see Tsimikas get a go. It'll be interesting to see what we do there, because obviously we've been keen to rotate the centre backs, but will Tsimikas get an opportunity at left back? Because when he has been given opportunity this season, he's looked really good, hasn't he?
Yeah, loads of assists, which is the key thing that Robertson's not getting, really. So prediction?
Yeah, I mean, I still think we've got enough to win the game. They're a good side at the moment, Arsenal, but I'm going to say Liverpool 2-1.
Yeah, I think 2-1's a sensible prediction because, you know, we can't see us scoring loads, and also you can't see us keeping a clean sheet. So I'll go with you, 2-1.
I think it'll be a good game, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
Yeah, I actually think Liverpool might end up putting a few past them, to be honest.
No Mane, no Anderson,
no Mane, no Firmino.
Although Arsenal have, picked up some results, I still haven't been that impressed by them, to be honest. I think it's flattered to see you a little bit. Even you have to look at the goal difference. I think the goal difference is 0 or something. They've just scraped through games, and they're a lot more solid than they were. But they've done it against, fairly run-of-the-mill sides where they pick the points up. But yeah, we'll see. So moving on to our pricing, thankless task, to say the least. City away on Sunday. Honestly, I mean, it's obviously a relief to see Yerry Mina back in training. I think that's the best news we could have had. It would have been nice to see Calvert-Lewin potentially be back in the mix. Decore, maybe. I think it's probably a stretch for him. And I think it'll half be in Benitez's mind thinking, is it worth putting him out for this fixture when really the likelihood of us picking up a point is slim anyway. I'm not sure that he'll be risking him for City away. Do you reckon?
No, probably not. I think Yerry Mina is probably the main one to get back, as you say there. I mean, it's worrying to play City at City. I know Palace beat them in the last home game, but I think that goes against us. They're not going to lose. I can't see them losing 2 on the run. I know they had a man sent off against that in that Palace game as well. But I think it's tough because what you'd expect us to go and make it difficult for them and sort of try and put the block on them, but I don't think you can do that to City either because they'll just pick it off. It's just going to be a matter of time before they do. As I said, having Mina back will help if we are doing that. But I just can't see anything else apart. I mean, I'm worried. I'll be honest. I'm worried because, if we try and sit back and hold them to it and try and go for a draw maybe or try and pick them off. We can't do that. We haven't. Not many teams can, to be fair, against City, but we certainly can't do that. We haven't got the concentration at the back, even with Mina there. If he's next to Keane, which you'd expect him to be, because Benitez seems to like Keane. I think we just it's just worrying.
I think if Decore's not out, which we've got not back, which we can probably safely assume he's not going to be. I reckon he'll go with 3 centre backs.
Three of them, yeah.
Played Godfrey and I don't know, he plays Godfrey and Keane either side of me. I mean, when he has played the 3 centre backs,
I was going to say it was a disaster.
He's put them all in the wrong positions, though, hasn't it? Weird. It's like he's just playing champ manager and he's just randomly threw 3 centre backs in random positions. But I can see him playing 3 centre backs, which again is much a concern. But I think the other reason why I can see him playing 3 centre backs is all 3 of them would have been in training this week. None of them were on international duty, so it's probably been a perfect chance to kind of work on that a little bit. Likewise, Allen and Delph would have been there. So you've got your 2 holding midfielders, which you'd expect to have in against City, whatever happens. Again, who else comes into that side? I mean, I half think he might throw Davis in there just to put more bodies in that midfield and to try and nullify them. And then maybe just having 2 players up top, maybe Gray and Richarlison, just to give us some pace up there.
Imagine if he does that, though. It's just going to be from minute 1. It's just going to be like a training game, isn't it? They have the ball. We put everyone behind the ball. They have the ball. We're not going to get out. I don't know. I think I'd like us to go 4-4-2 and still have them outlets. I know you in that formation you just mentioned, you've got the fullbacks who can potentially be the outlets, but I'd still like us to have them outlets wide if we can and try and get around them. But I don't think you can catch 22 with City. We haven't got let's face it, we haven't got the players who are disciplined enough to hold that formation you've just said. I get what you're saying, the people who haven't been on international duty and they can work on it, but it's been proven over the years, time and time again, that we don't have the players that can, against these top teams anyway, that can do it.
We also don't have the players that can go toe-to-toe with them. That's the thing.
Yeah. Does anyone watch?
I'm not advocating this 5-3-2, by the way. I'm just saying that's what.
No, I know. I see you thinking to it, and it's got potential. But I'm just thinking practically, if that happens, it's just going to be from minute 1. There's just going to be no outlet, and then when we do get it, it's just going to be knocking into the channels and hoping for the best, and no one's going to be pushing up and supporting. It's going to be really hard. But I think whatever formation and players we play, it's going to be like that.
If you look at Benitez's form and the way he approached games at Newcastle against the likes of City, that's what he's done now. He literally was 10% possession.
Yeah.
And it was like, and he's done okay, to be fair. I think he has a decent record and that's why the Newcastle fans loved him, because he did have a good and half decent record against the top sides. And I just think without Decore still and without Calvert-Lewin, we haven't got a strong squad. And I just don't think he'll feel as though at the moment this team has got, the quality to go up against.
How did Burnley do it? Does anyone see that game?
Yeah, it was.
Or was it a 3 o'clock one?
As you'd expect.
Yeah.
Burnley.
Would that be a blueprint to follow?
Palace.
Oh, Palace, yeah. Burnley took points off Chelsea, didn't he?
Palace, well, they had a man set off against Palace and they were unlucky. They had a couple of goals disallowed by VAR and all that. So it was like a bit... Palace, not that they were lucky, but I think they were a little bit, you know what I mean? Yeah, it was just one of those days, yeah. But I think you are right. You are right. We haven't got the players to go toe to toe with them, or to even. I think even if he sets up with those blocks and he plays for the draw, it's a brilliant point, isn't it? So he might well do that and try and get the draw than to go try and match them. I mean, you're not going to try and match them, but you know what I mean. Try and play a little bit and get beat anyway. You might well, I suppose, just try and keep it as tight as possible. But it's not going to be fun to watch.
It's horrible, isn't it? That's what I mean. It's horrible going into a game like that where you're literally going into a gunfight with a little spoon.
I know.
Hope the Blues keep the same negative energy when it comes to the derby analysis.
We'll have Decore and we'll have Calvin.
Yeah, fancy us in the derby already, actually.
With your super midfield as well. I'm looking forward to Fabinho towing his caravan round the pitch all game.
Yeah.
So
you're going for a draw then, Judgy?
Yeah, 0-0. 0-0.
Yeah, I'll go 1-1.
Okay, yeah, I'm going for 0-0 because it's not good form to be saying we're going to get beat on our own podcast. But yeah, that's it. I think that's about all we've got time for, isn't it?
Yep.
It is, yeah. It's 47 minutes, not too bad. That was it. Went slightly into injury time. Again, as I said at the start, please subscribe if you haven't already. We'll have another show coming out later on in the week, Game On, where we'll be going into quizzes and This Week in History. Catch you all then.